Hello everyone, welcome to Achievers IAS classes. Let's begin a discussion on the current events of 27th March 2018. The first issue in news is regarding some of the practices prevalent among the Muslim community like polygamy, nikah halala, etc. The issue is in news because the Supreme Court has sought the view of the Union government in response to a public interest litigation filed in the Supreme Court that practices like polygamy, nikah halala are against gender justice and right to equality guaranteed to all citizens alike. As we know, last year, a constitution bench of the Supreme Court had declared triple talaq as illegal, but it kept open the issue of polygamy and nikah halala, which is basically a process in which a Muslim woman has to marry another person and get divorced from him before being allowed to marry her previous husband again. This is violative of gender justice, and also Muslim women do not have any avenue to complain against her husband for the offense of bigamy, which is allowed under the Muslim personal law. The petitioners also sought a complete ban on practices like nikah muta, nikah misyar, etc., which render Muslim women extremely insecure, vulnerable, and infringe on their fundamental rights. For further details on these practices, please go through the notes provided on our website. Now let's move on to the next issue, which is an editorial regarding the recent Delhi High Court verdict setting aside the disqualification of legislators of the Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi, thereby questioning the manner in which the issue was handled by the Election Commission. The Election Commission is empowered to determine whether lawmakers have incurred disqualification in certain circumstances and advise the President or Governor if the legislators do attract disqualification based on certain grounds. The Delhi High Court, by setting aside the disqualification of the legislators, has ruled that the Election Commission violated the principles of natural justice as it failed to offer an oral hearing on the merits of the complaint but instead proceeded to give its final decision that the said MLAs attracted disqualification. The judiciary does not normally intervene in the functioning of the constitutional bodies like the Election Commission, but examines whether there has been any violation of natural justice, whether sufficient opportunities has been given to the parties involved, or whether there is any bias in the decisions taken. And in this regard, the recent decision of the Delhi High Court throws up many questions regarding the Election Commission's impartiality, and the Commission could either appeal against the verdict in the Supreme Court or redeem itself by carefully considering the same question and hold a fresh and fair hearing of the entire issue. Because any proceedings that may result in disqualification of elected representatives, fairness of procedure followed is no less important than finding an answer to whether the said legislators have incurred disqualification. With that, let's move on to the next issue, which is regarding the falling interest of foreign investors in the Indian bond market. Foreign investors who had so far invested heavily in the Indian market are cutting their holdings due to various domestic and global factors like the rising interest rates in the United States, the growing concerns over rising inflation in Indian markets, the rising energy prices, which have the potential to widen India's trade and current account deficits, fears over the government missing the fiscal deficit targets due to increased spending ahead of the general elections due in 2019, better performing economies like Thailand, which have a strong currency performance in contrast to the Indian bonds, which have turned a negative 2% and is said to be the second worst performance for Asian bonds after the Philippines due to the weakening rupee. Due to all these factors, the Indian economy can be negatively affected due to pulling out of foreign capital. With that, let's look into the next issue, which is an editorial regarding the recent decision of the Maldivian government to lift the state of emergency imposed. As we have discussed earlier, there was a constitutional crisis in Maldives, and former president of the Maldives, Mr. Mohammad Nasheed, had demanded Indian intervention to end the constitutional crisis. The ruling dispensation in Maldives had strongly reacted to any such adverse move by India, with China backing the current regime in Maldives. In this regard, lifting the emergency does not automatically result in status quo ante between the two countries, and given that there is a close relationship between Maldives and China, as evident by the growing military exchanges, a free trade agreement with China, and a slew of Chinese infrastructure investments in Maldives, the ruling dispensation in Maldives clearly considers itself sufficiently insulated from any counter moves by India or by the United States. Therefore, Military intervention of India in the Maldives was never a possibility, and it is a wise move by India not to overreact to intervene in the country's internal politics. But going ahead, India faces a tougher challenge to demonstrate its relevance to Maldives in the region while maintaining friendly relations with the current government. With that, let's move on to the next issue, which is regarding the recent meeting of the commerce ministers of India and China ahead of the summit level meeting between the two countries. The two sides are expected to deepen mutually beneficial cooperation and share development experience by jointly promoting synergy between China's Belt and Road Initiative and India's developmental strategies like Make in India, Digital India, etc. Next, the two sides would promote India's exports to China so as to address the huge trade imbalance between the two countries. And China has recently welcomed the participation of Indian businesses in agriculture, pharmaceutical, and IT sectors. Further, the two sides supported the multilateral trading system and stood for safeguarding their interests and other developing members in the middle of rising protectionist tendencies in major developed countries. Finally, the two sides would demonstrate flexibility to reach an early date for the conclusion of mutually beneficial RCEP agreement and in due course launching negotiations on a regional trade agreement between China and India. With that, I wrap up today's news analysis. Do share this content if you like it. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.